As someone who's been game collecting for a really long time, I have come to have a lot of friends in places other than where I live. The power of the internet, connecting with other gamers and game collectors online. And a lot of times in my journeys, I'll post pickups that I'm getting, events that I'm doing, and everyone's really amazed at some of the stuff that I have near me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why where I live, North Carolina, is amazing for retro game collecting, and kind of show people who may not live here all the things that North Carolina has to offer for the hobby that we love so dear. So a question you may be asking is, why North Carolina? A couple things about North Carolina, just for some general knowledge, is that North Carolina is a state in the United States, and we have a large variety of geographical variety. So we have like beaches, we have mountains, the weather can be really hot one day, really cold the next, sunny, rain, even sometimes we get snow. So we have kind of a little bit of everything you can ask for, like geographically, weatherly, a lot of good variety of living here. So because of that, a lot of people move here. And I feel like a lot of that also leads to game companies being in North Carolina. So North Carolina has a lot of game developers who are headquarters or have offices here. Kind of some famous examples: Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, and also Unreal Engine, and also Unreal Tournament. Please make Unreal Tournament again. That'd be great. We also have Insomniac Games, the creators of Spyro, most recently Spider-Man. They have an office that's based in North Carolina. And also Red Storm, who started out doing the Tom Clancy series of games and now is a Ubisoft studio. They are also in North Carolina. There's some examples, some of the more prominent ones, but because we have people moving to North Carolina, setting up companies in North Carolina, it also has people not only working for these game companies, but bringing those people to the state who already love games, and that kind of permeates a lot of the other culture in North Carolina as well. Now, as we're talking a little bit about the state as a whole, what I'm going to be doing is going kind of in different geographic locations that I personally am familiar with. So North Carolina has a lot to offer. We're going to talk about a lot of the specifics that I know about North Carolina, but of course keep in mind this is not a full comprehensive history of the state. This is a very large state. There's a lot to do here. I'm just going to talk about kind of the retro game and gaming specific stuff that I'm familiar with that is in a reasonable distance for me. What we're first going to be talking about is the area that I'm around, which is called the Triangle. So that is referring to three cities in particular: Raleigh, which is the state's capital, Durham, and Chapel Hill. If we usually do some simple geography here, this makes a three-sided triangle. And kind of the middle is what they refer to as the Research Triangle, which is more so like a tech and science-y, STEM-based companies that are like all very prominent in that area. And around that area are a lot of awesome retro game communities and stores. I hit the wrong key on my slideshow. First, I want to talk about Raleigh Retro Gamers. So Raleigh Retro Gamers is a group of retro game loving people who come together and host events to share the love of gaming. This is kind of a group of people who do specific markets and events. We do a lot of different events. I say we because I am a part of this group and I help out in some capacity for these events and everything. We do a lot of really good events. A lot of these are based on having a celebration of gaming, having like markets where people can come, like individuals, not just businesses, but individuals can come and buy, sell, trade games, like a swap meet. We do it that's open to the public. It's more than just games, a lot of other nerd stuff, and it's just a really awesome experience to communicate and connect with all these other people and also get everyone in one spot at the same time. And this is kind of some footage of one of our biggest events that we did. This was in Moore Square in Raleigh this year, 2023, which is a huge event open to the public with just lots of tents with vendors. A lot of that buy, sell, trade stuff, getting to know people, different businesses were there. We have free PlayStations for people to just play games, hang out, supporting local artists, just a celebration of the nerd side of the community in North Carolina. And these events kick ass. It's all about the people and talking to the people and making those connections, and it's just so rewarding to meet so many other like-minded collectors that happen to live close to where I am. It's great. And that may be one of my favorite parts about the community here, is just being able to interact with it, meet everyone, have a good space for everyone to be able to just swap games. I don't even have to buy games online anymore because I have events like this where I can just make those connections. I know people. Being able to pick up games locally feels so much better than just buying it from a stranger online. It really adds to like the fun and the joy of collecting. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about some of the retro game stores in North Carolina that I personally am familiar with. I will preface that there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of retro game stores in North Carolina. I'm just going to talk about the ones that I personally have been to and are around me, because I like highlighting some of my pals that have retro game shops. Keeping in Raleigh, the state's capital, we have Hidden Block Games. So Hidden Block Games is a retro game store that has recently moved to a new, larger location in Raleigh, and they are awesome. You're going to hear that a lot because everyone in this presentation is awesome. Even you, if you're here. But yeah, Hidden Block Games is great. They do not just video games, but also like trading cards. They have a pretty big Pokemon scene. I always love going in their store because they have a great variety of strategy guides and Nintendo powers. And they also have a really good selection of like different collector's editions and things of that nature. So it's really fun. Every time I go, there's something different that's fun to see. And it's just a really good place to hang out. And it feels good to have a retro game store in our nation's capital because it has been an empty seat for far too long. Close to Hidden Block Games is Magpie and Crow. So if you go like 15-ish minutes north of Raleigh, not even, you will hit a small town of Wake Forest, and in their downtown area is Magpie and Crow. Magpie and Crow is another retro game store. They recently opened up, I want to say this year, 2023, and they have a little bit of everything. They do video games, they do trading cards, they do toys, they do like movies, music, things like that. This is a really awesome space that kind of get a little bit of everything. Whenever I'm in Raleigh for Hidden Block, I gotta go to Magpie while I'm there because it's so close, it would be stupid not to. And same with Magpie. If I'm at Magpie, it would be stupid to not go to Hidden Block while I'm there. Both stores are awesome. I really love just even popping and just talking games with them because they're just like really friendly people, and they always have a really good rotating stock of things that they got in. So yeah, and Magpie is also super solid. Now, there is another retro game store I'm familiar with that is within the Triangle, or around it rather, that is based with a very famous video game company that a lot of retro game collectors may be aware of. And that is Limited Run Games. If you didn't know, Limited Run Games was headquarters and founded in North Carolina, and they have a physical retail store location. And according to Wikipedia, have 69 employees. Nice. Now, Limited Run Retail is their retail location that is more so specific to the LRG-related titles. If you were ever trying to get an LRG game online, you're like, oh man, I missed the pre-order window, it's very possible that you can go to their store and they'll have it there. They also do have a used game section, even though the majority of the store is based on what LRG releases are coming out. They also have a lot of different books. They have a lot of different LRG merch, but then also that used game section to kind of round out everything. This is a really awesome store. I really love going in there and just seeing the vibe is really cool. You got like the little squiggly lights and the fun carpet that really invokes that like nostalgia era. It's a great place to be. And I should mention that this is in Cary. It's a little bit close to Raleigh if you drive like a little bit west in that area. If you're in the Triangle and you like LRG, you gotta hit them up. Their store is great. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit about another geographic center in North Carolina, and that is what's referred to as the Triad. I am not as familiar with this area, so any Triad people watching, if I butcher the name of Triad or something, I'm sorry. But you guys are cool too. The Triad, from what I understand, encompasses Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, because this also makes a three-sided triangle. So there are some awesome stores and communities there, much like how Raleigh has Raleigh Retro Gamers. There is a Triad collectors group based in the Triad area. If that is more local to you, hit them up because they do events and stuff too. The first store I want to talk about from the Triad area is in Greensboro, this little dot right here, which is like maybe like 90 minutes, like an hour, 90 minutes from the Triangle. And of course the store I'm referencing right now is Lost Ark Video Games. So Lost Ark, I would argue, was the most famous retro game store in the state. They have been around for over 10 years. They are known pretty much in a lot of other places. They do a lot of like imports. They have a lot of like anime and model kit stuff. They go to a lot of conventions around, I think, help spread their word. They are awesome. They are definitely the store I think of when I think of a store that has like literally everything. Like you can walk into Lost Ark and consistently find like TurboGrafx, Master System, a lot of more rare and elusive consoles and games. Many a time I walk in the Lost Ark and every single item on my want list is in that store. It is the place to go for volume, and it is awesome. If you were ever in or traveling around North Carolina, Lost Ark is definitely a place to be. They also have a really cool arcade, and the arcade has like machines that sometimes cycle out, from what I understand. I've only been to the arcade a couple times, but the arcade is awesome, and it's great. It's a great place to be. We also have Retroid games. So if you're in Greensboro, if you go like 30 minutes west, maybe not even, you'll hit the town of Winston-Salem. And in Winston-Salem is Retroid. So Retroid is another retro game store. They primarily focus on games. And those guys are super awesome. They make a lot of really fun, like, commercials advertising games and things that they have. So it's really fun to follow them on socials just to see what fun things they're up to. But this is another store that I really like. It's a very chill vibe, very laid back, and they always have a bunch of boxed items that I need. Like, I'm getting a bunch of Super Nintendo box games, and Retroid always has at least like 3 that I'm looking for. So I'm always walking out of there with some cardboard, but in a good way. Retroid really rocks. And another store I want to talk about in the Triad area isn't so much just a retro game store, it is McKay's Used Books and CDs? I always known this place as McKay's Used Books and More, but when I looked on Facebook I saw Used Books and CDs. CDs, these nuts, got them. So McKay's is a used media store. They do primarily books, but also movies, music, like vinyl CDs, video games, like other electronics, a lot of just used stuff, trading cards, comics, like the whole 9 yards. There are 2 locations that are within North Carolina. One is in Winston-Salem, which is like a really large location. The other one is in Greensboro, close to Lost Ark. The Greensboro location is actually moving to Mebane. Now, Mebane is in between the Triangle and the Triad area, so it's going to be a good like meeting point of the 2 communities here. But the good thing about McKay's is that they have a trade credit system that you can trade in books or movies or CDs and use that trade credit to buy games. All the trade credit is just 1 trade credit currency. So if you have, like, maybe you're getting out of collecting music CDs and want to use that money to put into your game collection, trade in your CDs and McKay's, get that trade credit to buy games from them. That's what I did a handful of years ago. And the trade credit system is just really good. McKay's also wants a good rotating stock. It is a very popular store though, so every time you go it will be like hella crowded. But McKay's is really good. If you're ever in that Winston-Greensboro area, it's definitely worth hitting up. Now, North Carolina has a lot more to offer than just what I've been talking about. These are just kind of the specific stores, communities, and locations that I personally am familiar with. A couple other places I will highlight. I know that Charlotte has a pretty big collectors group in that area. That's a little bit too far out for me to travel to on the daily, but I do know they have a pretty solid collecting circle there. I also know there's a couple good collecting, or rather retro game stores in the coast areas of North Carolina. I went to one store, I can't remember what it was called, so I do apologize, but it was closer to the coast when I went to the beach, and I was like, this place is pretty cool. But yeah, there's stores around the coast too. I'm sure there's communities around there too. North Carolina just has a lot to offer. If you're ever in the Triangle, if you're ever in the Triad, if you're ever anywhere here, I'm sure you're going to find a lot of awesome people, because it's really the people at the end of the day that makes the community and the stores here so special to me. And being able to have that connection with other game collectors is really a highlight of what makes the hobby just so darn fun. So yeah, in short, North Carolina has a lot of really awesome places to go. If you're ever around, I highly recommend checking it out. But if not, you can always go to South Carolina for Southeast Game Exchange. But, you know, today we're talking about North Carolina, so I'm not going to talk about them. But yeah, I hope this was informative to see a little bit about why North Carolina is an awesome place for game collecting, why it means a lot to me, and highlighting some of the awesome groups and people that make the state so special. And if you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. I make a lot of YouTube videos, more so game reviews, but also just collection update videos. I also have a TikTok, you know, all that stuff for the Zoomers and whatever. And also, if you are in North Carolina and there's something really cool in the state I am not familiar with and missed, please let me know, because I love talking about why where I live is such a great place for game collecting. That's all I can really think of. I hope this was informative. Thanks again, and have a good one.